Welcome to Mysteries and Crime, where shadows speak and silence holds secrets. Tonight, we unravel the twisted legacy of the Murdaugh Murders, a Southern dynasty shattered. Clue question: what are your thoughts on the Murdaugh case? Could a different turn of events have changed everything? Let's begin. A mother and her son gunned down on their family estate in South Carolina. Their deaths would uncover a chain of alleged lies, theft, and murder spanning decades. At the center, a once respected attorney, Alex Murdaugh. By the end, a legacy would fall, and a nation would watch. It was June 7th, 2021. Moselle, a sprawling 1,700-acre hunting estate in Island, South Carolina. Darkness cloaked the kennels where Maggie Murdaugh, aged 52, and her youngest son, Paul, just 22, were found lifeless, brutally murdered. The call came in at around 10:07 p.m. The voice on the other end was calm, measured. It was Alex Murdaugh. According to reports, he told the dispatcher, "I've been gone. I just got back. They've been shot." Deputies arrived quickly, securing the scene with flashlights sweeping across gravel, blood, and shell casings. Maggie was shot multiple times with a high-powered rifle. Paul's wounds were catastrophic, allegedly inflicted by a 12-gauge shotgun. The killer had not spared brutality. No signs of forced entry, no weapons found. And yet, there were whispers even then. The Murdaughs were not just any family. For nearly 100 years, they had ruled the legal and political system of the Low Country, 3 generations serving as solicitors, a dynasty of power. The initial reaction from the public was shock. But for some in Hampton County, it wasn't just grief. It was suspicion, because Paul had been awaiting trial for a fatal boat crash. And Alex, his secrets were just beginning to unravel. Paul Terry Murdaugh was born into privilege, but his life was marked by controversy. At just 22, Paul was known to friends as charismatic, reckless, and allegedly prone to drinking. But one night in February 2019 would change everything. He was allegedly driving his family's boat, intoxicated, when it slammed into a bridge piling near Paris Island. Mallory Beach, aged 19, was thrown into the water. Her body was recovered 1 week later. Paul was later indicted for boating under the influence, resulting in death. He pled not guilty. Despite the charges, Paul remained free on bond. According to friends, he appeared untouchable, shielded by the Murdaugh name. But the pressure was mounting. Anonymous threats, harassment, a lawsuit from the Beach family. Margaret Maggie Murdaugh was a mother of 2 and known to be deeply devoted to her sons. Described by friends as warm, loyal, and quiet. Maggie reportedly spent increasing time away from the Moselle property, often staying at their beach home. According to legal filings, she had been consulting a divorce attorney. Sources later revealed that she was reluctantly drawn back to Moselle that night, after a request from Alex. Some say she didn't want to go. Both Maggie and Paul died near the kennels, a place familiar, yet isolated. There were no defensive wounds, no struggle, only the brutal finality of sudden, targeted violence and silence, where once there was laughter from the very beginning. One name hovered over the crime scene: Richard Alexander Alex Murdaugh, Born into a legal empire, Alex was a prominent attorney and member of the powerful Murdaugh lineage. To the public, he was a grieving husband and father, but behind the facade, secrets festered. In the weeks following the murders, questions multiplied. Why was Alex the one to discover the bodies? Why was he visiting his mother, who suffers from dementia, that same evening? According to law enforcement, his timeline raised flags, but at the time, there was insufficient evidence to bring charges. But this was just the beginning. By September of 2021, Alex was allegedly implicated in a staged roadside shooting, claiming he was targeted in a drive-by. Only later to admit he'd allegedly hired a former client to kill him, so his surviving son, Buster, could collect a life insurance payout. The plot unraveled quickly. Then came the financial charges, dozens of indictments, alleging Alex stole millions of dollars from clients, his own law firm. Even from a fund set up for the family of his late housekeeper, Gloria Satterfield, who had died under mysterious circumstances years earlier. According to the South Carolina Attorney General's office, it was greed, desperation, and fear that may have motivated Alex. By late 2021, the once respected patriarch of the Murdaugh family was now the primary suspect in a murder case that would shake the legal world to its core. The murders of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh were not crimes of passion. They were executions. It was the night of June 7th, 2021. Paul had reportedly been at the dog kennels, tending to the animals. Maggie arrived shortly after, summoned back to Moselle by Alex, according to phone records and text messages. Sometime between 8:45 and 10 o'clock p.m., the killings occurred. Paul was the first to die, shot twice with a 12-gauge shotgun. The first blast struck his chest and arm. The second was a fatal shot to the head at close range. His body was found partially inside the feed room. According to forensic reports, the damage was catastrophic. Fragments of his skull and brain matter were found on the floor and nearby walls. Moments later, Maggie was gunned down with a .300 blackout rifle. She had been running based on the trajectory of the bullets. She was hit multiple times in the abdomen, leg, wrist, and finally, the back of the head. Her body was discovered just yards away from her son. 2 different weapons, 2 victims, and allegedly no signs of forced entry, no theft, no DNA from anyone outside the family. Law enforcement found shell casings near both bodies. The rifle casings matched ammunition found on the property. As for the shotgun, its origin was unclear, but the family was known to own multiple firearms. The phones of all 3 Murdaughs were examined. Paul's phone captured a video at 8:44 p.m., just minutes before the murders. In the background, 3 voices could be heard. According to investigators, it was Paul, Maggie, and Alex. This directly contradicted Alex's initial statement that he had not been at the kennels that evening. Alex claimed he was visiting his mother, suffering from dementia, at her home in nearby Alameda. But that alibi would be called into question. Data from Alex's vehicle showed movement inconsistent with his statement, and phone records indicated he may have been at Moselle longer than he claimed. Adding to suspicion, Alex placed the 911 call at approximately 10:07 p.m., stating he had just returned and discovered the bodies. Yet, based on cell data, he had been near the kennels around the time of the killings. Blood spatter analysis, later introduced in court, allegedly showed traces of high-velocity impact on Alex's shirt, suggesting proximity to at least one of the shootings. Still, There were no eyewitnesses, no surveillance footage, no murder weapons recovered. The case rested not on a single piece of damning evidence, but on a pattern, a trail of lies, contradictions, and mounting pressure. A financial empire was crumbling. A boat crash trial loomed, and the perfect image of a Southern family had begun to crack. According to prosecutors, the murders were not spontaneous. They were deliberate, calculated, a desperate act by a man allegedly cornered by his own deceit. In the early days, the investigation into the Murdaugh murders was clouded by power, influence, and fear. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, SLED, took control of the case. Dozens of officers combed the Moselle property. Cell phone data, GPS tracking, vehicle telemetry, digital footprints, all were analyzed. Search warrants were executed at the family's homes and law firm. Hundreds of pieces of evidence were collected: shell casings, clothing, firearm receipts, even surveillance footage from neighboring properties. But progress was slow. According to officials, the Murdaugh name complicated the process. Some leads went cold, others were deliberately misleading. Still, investigators quietly built a case. And as financial fraud allegations emerged against Alex, detectives began to draw connections between motive, opportunity, and desperation. Behind closed doors, a theory took shape: that the murders were not random, but personal. Forensics in the Murdaugh case was both revealing and frustrating. The crime scene had been secured quickly, but some crucial elements had already been compromised. Rain had fallen, washing away trace evidence. No fingerprints, no DNA from outside individuals. 2 firearms had been used, yet neither weapon was recovered. Gunshot residue was present on Alex Murdaugh's hands, but not conclusively. The most damning forensic clue: Paul's phone video, recorded seconds before his death. That audio placed Alex at the scene, despite his initial denial. Later, forensic experts testified about blood spatter patterns allegedly found on Alex's shirt. According to prosecution, it showed high-velocity impact, consistent with standing near a gunshot blast. Alex's defense argued it was flawed science, unreliable. Ultimately, the case would hinge not on forensics alone, but on a web of circumstantial evidence and unraveling lies. The town of Hampton, South Carolina, was stunned. For generations, the Murdaugh family had commanded respect or fear, depending on who you asked. But the brutal double homicide shattered the illusion of invincibility. Whispers grew into questions. Why were no arrests made? Why did law enforcement seem hesitant? As more revelations emerged about Paul's boat crash case, Alex's financial misconduct, and other suspicious deaths tied to the family, public trust eroded. Some townspeople feared retaliation. Others rallied for justice. The Murdaughs were no longer untouchable. They were suspects in their own legacy's collapse. The national spotlight was swift and relentless. Major outlets like CNN, the New York Times, and Court TV descended upon the Low Country. Podcasts and documentaries exploded. The Murdaugh Murders became a viral phrase. Reporters dug into every facet: the boat crash, the family's political ties, the mysterious death of housekeeper Gloria Satterfield, and even Stephen Smith, a teenager whose unsolved death was allegedly reopened in connection to the Murdaugh case. Speculation ran wild. Was this a crime family hiding behind a legal dynasty? Truth and theory blurred in the media frenzy. But one thing was certain: the world was watching. As details emerged, theories multiplied, and each one pulled another thread from the Murdaugh family's fabric. Some believed Paul was the target, a consequence of the fatal boat crash and mounting lawsuits. Others speculated Maggie was distancing herself from Alex and had uncovered financial irregularities. A few even wondered, was it a hired hit? But law enforcement narrowed focus to one man, Alex Murdaugh, the only known individual to benefit from both deaths. By allegedly eliminating Paul, he could delay or halt the civil boat crash trial. With Maggie gone, marital strain and potential divorce settlements vanished. Prosecutors argued it was about money and maintaining control. Still, some believed the motive ran deeper. Secrets spanning generations, a family hiding skeletons in plain sight. As one local resident put it, "You don't cross the Murdaughs unless you want to disappear." In January of 2023, Alex Murdaugh was formally charged with the murders of his wife and son. The trial began in late January and captivated the nation. Dozens of witnesses testified, from digital forensic analysts to financial victims. Alex took the stand in his own defense. He admitted to lying about his whereabouts, stealing millions, and staging his own shooting. But he denied killing Maggie and Paul. On March 2nd, 2023, the jury returned after less than 3 hours of deliberation. Guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced Alex Murdaugh to 2 consecutive life terms in prison, without the possibility of parole. But even after the verdict, questions lingered. Some believe others may have been involved. Some think more bodies remain buried, metaphorically or otherwise. Justice was served, but the story of the Murdaughs was far from over. Even after Alex Murdaugh's conviction, questions remain. What really happened to Gloria Satterfield, the family's housekeeper who mysteriously fell at Moselle? Why was Stephen Smith's case, a teenager found dead on a rural road in 2015, suddenly reopened? Could others have been involved in the alleged financial schemes, or worse? The verdict closed one chapter, but the book on the Murdaugh legacy is far from finished. Allegedly, more secrets lie buried in the low-country soil. The fall of the Murdaughs reshaped a region. Legal reform bills were introduced, examining solicitor powers, prosecutorial immunity, and the handling of financial crime. Small-town South Carolina began to question the very systems that once protected the powerful. Trust once blindly given would now be earned. True crime followers found a chilling reminder that wealth and prestige can shield darkness, but not forever. So we ask again, what are your thoughts on the Murdaugh case? Could a different turn of events have changed everything? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for joining us on Mysteries and Crime. As always, stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay safe.